So like I said before, I am from Tillamook Cheese. I have been with the company for 16 and a half years. I didn't start in Tillamook Cheese in safety. I started in the packaging office. For those of you that have a packaging department, that is a unique little department. And when I got the opportunity to go lateral and get into safety, I didn't have any real desire to be into safety, but it was kind of a way to move into another area within the company. Once I got into safety, oh, sorry.
A general question, a company the size of Tillamook, how many people are full-time working just in safety?
Right here. We are the safety team. However, we have learned to spread out and influence other people to help us, right? So we're going to talk about that a little bit, but thank you. Yeah, there's I have all of the facilities, and we have Tillamook, Boardman, and we have offices in Tigard as well. These two guys sitting right here work with me, and we try to conquer the world.
Right now, the whole company is on their own.
Yeah. Fingers crossed, everything's going well, right? So you become kind of passionate about safety once you get into it. And I think all of you wouldn't be in this room if you didn't care about safety leadership and about influencing safety at your facilities. So I think it's kind of just natural that you're all there, we all get passionate about it, and we all want to do the right thing. So what does safety leadership mean? At Tillamook, it isn't just the three of us. It is everybody. And we try to, whoops, my notes didn't go down. We try to think in, who guides us. You have to lead by example, which Mark had said before. Who really does it? Who means it? Who sets the course? And we have found at Tillamook, it depends on what department you're in, but mostly it is our employees. Brandon and Jeff and I can talk until we're blue in the face. It doesn't mean anything until the employees see it and believe it. And I will be completely honest with you. I have the best employee, and I'm saying I have the best employees in the world, because we can walk out on the floor and it takes us an hour to walk through a plant because our employees are constantly communicating with us. They communicate with us, they communicate with their leads, we get information. It is a constant flow of information. So I am very, very proud of our employees. These are kind of our levels at Tillamook. We have our CEO, we have directors and VPs, we have a lot of levels here. Managers, supervisors, leads, and then the floor employee who does the work, right?
You, Shelly, your leads are hourly?
Yes. Leads and floor employees are hourly. Everything else is pretty much salary. So usually, and I loved it when Mark said safety culture, it's hard to describe, right? And I just love it when somebody says, we need to improve our safety culture. How do you do that? There's not a recipe for that. How do you do that? The CEO kind of supports the VPs and the VPs and the directors. They kind of are the idea people, right? The CEO supports that. He kind of supports everything. The managers kind of set the course. How can we do that? How can we get there exactly? Our supervisors and leads actually are the ones that implement new ideas. They're the ones working with the employees. They're out there. Our floor employees, they've got to own it. You can't have anything else until those employees own it. And we have the same thing at Tillamook that all of you battle with. We have people, our head cheesemaker has been there 48 years. He is a dynamo. He is so on it. You can bring up a new idea, and he is not one that says, I've been making cheese this way 48 years, don't mess with me. He is not that way. He listens to ideas. He does stick to his cheese making. I will give him that. But if you say, hey, Dale, maybe we could change this conveyor belt a little bit, make it a little bit more ergonomically correct, he is all over it. He is absolutely awesome. So we're really fortunate that we have that kind of leadership within the plant that's already there. Now we do have those employees that say, never been hurt doing this, not going to change now, until they get hurt. And then all of a sudden, we need to change everything, right? Everybody battles that. It's not unique to just Tillamook cheese. So how do we support safety leadership? When you think in your organization, if somebody says, who is your safety leader, what comes to mind?
Most people don't think a safety manager or EHS person.
They do. They say Brandon. They say Jeff. But that's not the safety leadership. We're the safety support team, right? We want to help our employees be safer. We want to help them think about how they can be safer. We don't want to go out there and say, hey, if you use that right arm more than you use your left arm, your right arm is going to get sore. Mix it up a little bit. They need to come up with that. It's got to be their idea. So who provides the guidance and who really does set the course? Who really does that in your organization? Yeah, this is where you get a talk.
Right now, you're going to have the supervisors. I'm fortunate enough, I'm one of the sergeants, so I have areas, I have a lot of contact with a lot of people. And like you were saying, who supports those things? And if they ask, I said, some of the things I've asked them, I asked them a question, who's responsible for our safety? And they go, well, you guys know. I said, it's all of us. It's every single person that works in this place. And even to the point to the inmates. I go, it's their responsibility as well. And it's kind of, I'm trying.
That's got to be a hard sell.
Yeah. Come on, take a tour.
Yeah. But when you think about your organization, it can't be just one person, right? It's got to be all levels. So how do we demonstrate it? We have a stretch program now that we've implemented. We have a company that comes in, they're called Work Right Northwest. They come in once a week at Tillamook, they come in once a month at Boardman, and the employees can go see them if they have some soreness or some aches. They've helped us implement some stretching programs. Our plant director and the managers, if they're going through the corridor when they're stretching, they stop and stretch with them. How much does that mean to the employees that it's not just Brandon and I and Jeff telling them to stretch, or it's not just a coworker saying, hey, we can stretch for 5 minutes before we get out there on the line, let's stretch. But to have that level of management actually stop and stretch with them, that's huge. It's really huge. And it wasn't that big a sale to get them to do it either. They took it and did it.
On that subject, we talk about that at work. Now, I'm sure most people have a pet. What do they do when they get out of bed? They stretch.
Right.
Your pets are smart enough to stretch,
Yeah.
and we don't do it.
Yeah, I'm not as smart as my dog if I don't stretch, right? And actually, the stretching program, it's kind of interesting. The Work Right program, and in fact, Nick is speaking here at the conference tomorrow. He's the president of that company. But that program, it has developed into even more. They come out on the floor. They if an employee says, I'm not feeling real good, I have a sore elbow or whatever, they'll go out on the floor and they'll watch them do their job. And they'll say, you probably don't realize it, but if you keep your elbow in closer to your side, you don't have to reach that far. You're kind of overreaching. And it's helped tremendously. It really has. So it's kind of funny when we talk about accountability. Everybody thinks accountability means you're in trouble. You're accountable for that accident or injury. You're accountable for that strain. That is not necessarily what it means, not in my book. I do want employees accountable. I want them also accountable for implementing good ideas. And do we celebrate that? Do we give recognition for that? It goes a long ways. We have these little, they're kind of, it's a good idea, but sometimes it's kind of hokey. But we have these little spot on awards, right? And if an employee does something great, and it doesn't have to come from a manager, a coworker can go, you get a little thank you card, you handwrite a thank you card, and you get them a little gift out of this cabinet. And it can be safety, it can be production, it can be, hey, I was having a bad day and you lifted me up that day. It can be anything, but it's fun, and the employees, they're accountable then for that. And accountability, it can go both ways, but it does not mean you're in trouble. And it's really important that we know that. Safety committees are the voice of your employees. The safety committees are made up from your employees. We have 2 of our newer safety committee members here to this conference. They're in their safety committee thing right now. We took several safety committee members to the GOSH conference in Portland. That is one thing I will say about our company is they are giving us the resources to get those safety committee members educated on what their jobs really are. And also it helps them go out and see other people from other companies and visit with them. What do you guys do at your plant? It's so important. That cross education is huge. And those employees, they are the voice of your employees on the floor. If anything comes to the safety committee, we have one member from each department. If it comes to the safety committee, they help implement it, right? So it's coming from the people. It's not coming from I'm telling them what to do. It's their idea and they get it. The chair of the safety committee changes every year or so. This year we had, I know it's supposed to be only once a year, but this year we had the old chair kind of train the new chair. So we have the new chair, and then we kind of have a co-chair that helps coach them, getting the minutes out, getting the agenda done, getting all that done. Because what we found is the chair's like, oh, done with my year, hand it off to someone else. And things change too much. So we get things kind of to a level where it's working really well. And then you get a new chair and you kind of go back down, and then they learn, and then they get up there, and then you get a new chair. So it's really important to us to continue at that higher level. So the old chair agrees. So it's kind of a 2-year commitment when you're a chair of the safety committee.
So you're able to maintain that continuity.
Absolutely, and it's working really well. So a couple other points I wanted to make with the safety committee is we use them to review incidents. We track all of our incidents and of course our injuries. We use the safety committee to review those incidents, and we also use them to come up with an action plan. We give them projects. Recently in Boardman, we had an employee that had a concern about some forklift traffic out by the trash compactors. They have to kind of cross a driveway where the milk trucks come in. And the employee, it wasn't a near miss or anything, but as she was going out there, she thought, you know what, those trucks really, they had moved the big container. What did you call it? The dumpster, thank you. Good grief. They had moved the dumpster, and as she was going out there, she said, you know, those trucks really can't see me very well coming in. And so we took the safety committee out there, and they come up with the action plan because they're the ones that do the work. So it's really important that you leverage those people and empower them and recognize what they're doing, and it goes a long ways with that committee.
How do you get past the confidentiality part?
So the confidentiality part probably for us is not as big a deal. As far as injuries go, we go by department. We don't say names. Incidents are pretty much the same way. If, however, there's an employee on the safety committee that has reported an incident, they give more and more detail. But the safety committee, we're pretty close on that. It's not the same standards that you have. It's a lot more open. Yeah, but we don't go into details about the injuries as far as the status of the workers' comp claim or anything like that. We look at the mechanism and we look at the risk. We do a full investigation on any recordable injury, and then we do a hazard analysis and look at the risk and the root cause. Names are out of it. Now, we're a small enough company, I'll be honest, most everybody knows who we're investigating, but we don't put the name in there. So how do you get that buy-in from your employees and from all levels of your leadership team? This year, they decided to measure our safety progress. Let's just call it progress. And they decided that they would measure it by reducing our recordable injuries and how much of a reduction we could get. My team, our performance review next year is based on the reduction of those injuries. I hate that kind of measurement because it's a lagging indicator. It's what's already happened, and we don't have any control over if somebody files a claim or we have a recordable, other than trying to address the hazard prior. And if we're doing our jobs right with inspections and working with the safety committee and incident reports, we will be already providing that information and reducing injuries. So I really hate that measurement. I want a measurement that shows the good things that we're doing. I want a positive measurement. So we measure training. The people that we have here today, that's kind of a gold star on our record, right? We measure how much compliance training we get completed in a quarter. We measure safety meeting attendance. We measure, we don't measure how many days we've gone without an accident, although that's kind of one of those things they want us to, because again, it's more reactive. To really get our employees involved and to show the people at the top that we're doing a good job is to stay on the positive side of it. And then we want to prove it. So if we've made a change, we want to prove that that change has made a difference. It kind of, the Work Right program is one of the things that we've reduced our soft tissue injuries, not a whole lot, but we've reduced them some, and I do believe it's Work Right and the stretching program. We recently went through some new machinery in our packaging department. Our employees used to have to manually dump the 40-pound blocks of cheese out of the boxes, and it is a very manual process, and they literally take that box and flip it over and pound on the top and then shake it. So just imagine doing that, and there's a 30-minute rotation in there, so they do that for 30 minutes and then they open the bags and push it back on the conveyor belt for 30 minutes. But just imagine the stress with that type of job. They've done it that way for years, and we've had injuries for years. So they actually put in a denester this year, and it's pretty amazing. It's a denester, and it also then the cheese kind of comes down the line, and they have another machine that takes the plastic bag off. That part's a little bit, we're still working out the kinks there. But it's been fabulous in that room. We are a union shop, and so you'd think that we'd say, well, you employees, you can't just dump that cheese all the time. You have to rotate into something else. Unfortunately, that was one of the higher paying jobs, and so people would bid into that job, and they don't want to leave it because they're making $1 more an hour than somebody out on the line. So that's kind of a double-edged sword. You can't make them do something else even after an injury. They can go right back to that job. That's the bad part about it. So the denester has been great. It's been a little bit of a trial getting it going, but it has been great. We were really fortunate as well because they involved Brandon right there a lot in the installation and the layout of that machine. Brandon actually came from the plant. He worked in packaging with me and then worked out in the warehouse. So he's done all those jobs. And he was key in making sure that that machinery fit in the space. We weren't the aisleways were proper and people could get around, and he went through the lockout procedure with the manufacturer. It was really, really good team effort on that. And then kind of a timeline. I was talking to Mark about a timeline on Sharp status as well. And I'm sure your companies are the same too. When you start something, they all want to know, well, how long is that going to take? When are you going to have that done? I'm sure none of you have dealt with any of that. But there is no cookbook recipe to get people involved with safety. They either have a safe mind and they want to be safe, or they don't. And they don't care until they get hurt. And I can show them statistics. I can show them work programs. I can show them all kinds of things. But some of our employees just really don't care until they get hurt. And then they're on board. I don't want to wait until that point, but unfortunately, sometimes that's what happens. Certain things about safety can be taught. The rules and the regulations, you can teach them that. You have to have that machine locked out before you open it. You can teach them that. But some of the other stuff that takes common sense and takes time, they either have to have that innate sense that they want to do it, or they don't. You can't teach that. Just me, or even the CEO, which the CEO meets with our employees twice a year, either me or the CEO, whoever, if we can stand up and say, we really want you guys to be safe. But unless you have support from the top, you have the tools and the resources to start things in that direction, it's very hard to do. We're pretty fortunate at Tillamook Cheese right now that we have a pretty proactive team in place that we are getting more resources. The training, I think we've gotten more people kind of interested just by taking them to some of these seminars, getting them out of the plant and getting them in touch with other people. We've gotten kind of more inquiries into the safety committee in different areas. So that's important to me, really important. It all takes time. You have to be patient, one idea at a time. If you get 5 projects going at one time, you can't do any of them properly. One idea to completion and then move on. Do you guys have any questions for me? Boy, I must have done a fantastic job.